Hi everyone, welcome to episode 76 of the Technology for Good show. I'm in the unusual position today of not having a co-host. This is the first time it's happened in a long time. And it's down to my co-host, my normal co-host, Chris, being unavoidably pulled away about 30 minutes ago, which didn't give me time to grab anyone else, unfortunately. Not Chris's fault, outside of his control. So I'm afraid you're stuck with just me today. So be it. So the first thing I just realized is I don't have my lower third turned on. So let me just turn that on quickly. For people who are not familiar with the show, just a quick bit of background. This show is around technology which aims to make life better for people. And with that in mind, we will be talking about those kinds of technologies. Let me just in that lower third, sorry. Okay. So there we go. The normal run of the show is that I, Tom Raftery, start. I will be talking about, first of all, some bit of bad news to give it a bit of context, and then into the good news, a bit of climate-related news first, just to say, you know, what's happening. And then we'll be talking about technology and the way technology is helping people to improve their lives in general. So let me twist this a little bit. There we go, that's better. And so the first story that I came across today that I thought might be of interest was, if I can find it here, there we go. That's the one. And load it up on screen. Here we go. So the world is only halfway to meeting the emissions target with our current pledges. So this is a story about the climate conference that's happening in Paris next month. And most of the countries going to that conference have, at this point, pledged what emissions that they are going to reduce there. So they've pledged their targets for emissions reductions for the next few years. And when you tot all those emissions targets up, it turns out we're only halfway towards meeting where we want to be if we want to limit climate change to 2 degrees C. So that's something we obviously need to fix. With that in mind, it sounds like bad news, but frankly, I don't think it's that bad. I know it's not good news. It's definitely not good news. But the good thing about it is we still have a bit of time. Not a lot, but we still have a bit of time. And I think what will happen is we'll make those pledges, we'll cut our carbon emissions, and then we'll realize it's not enough, and we'll revisit it at the next climate conference. So it's going to be hard. It's going to make life harder for everyone, but it's not the end of the world yet. So yeah, it's not good, but we'll fix it. We will. I'm a glass half full person, and I reckon we are going to fix it. The next story that I saw that I thought was interesting was one around Exxon, and we're aware that Exxon have been hiding their knowledge of climate change for a long time. What has happened now is that the Attorney General of New York has decided, well, this is criminal. And or at least he has decided it may be criminal, and he's decided to open a criminal investigation into ExxonMobil to determine whether the company lied to the public about the risks of climate change, or to investors about how such risks might hurt the oil business. So the Attorney General's name is Eric Schneiderman, and he's issued a subpoena on Wednesday of this week to Exxon, demanding extensive financial records, emails, and other documents. And this is fantastic news. I mean, this we've been saying for a while that the fossil fuel industry has been hiding this, and it's only recently the investigations have turned up the documents which prove that Exxon at least Exxon, have been aware of this since the 1970s, have been aware that climate change is real, and have been going about trying to stop people from doing anything about it. So now the New York attorney has opened a criminal investigation into it, and we'll see what comes of that. Hopefully something will come of it, and we'll see. That remains to be seen, just what does come of it. What's curious to me, apart from the investigation, is how anyone can now try and claim that climate change is not real. Because for 40 years, 40 years ago, Exxon scientists proved it was real, and then set about trying to hide that fact. And Exxon are, they're not exactly environmentalists or Greenpeace, and if their scientists said it was real 40 years ago, then the case for it being real is pretty strong. And anyone who is trying to say no, it's not real, you should go and talk to Exxon's scientists, because they think it's real. So yeah, climate change, it's a real thing. It is. Even Exxon thinks so, and have spent millions trying to convince us that it's not so, because they're afraid that we'll stop using their product. Anyway, moving on. So the next story I saw comes out of Madrid, slightly north of me here in the south of Spain, and they've got a new pollution plan. The air quality in Madrid is famously appalling. It really is. It's almost as bad as London's, and that's saying something. And so to try and get over that, what they've done in the city of Madrid, and this has only happened because there's a new mayor there, Manuela, and she is more left-wing than the previous generations of mayors has been. So she has actually decided to make a change and try and fix the problem, which is something that previous mayors have just decided to ignore completely. So what she's decided to do is institute a rolling scale of measures, and these measures start off with reductions in the amount of cars, so odd and even numbered cars on different days, depending on the amount of pollution, and then going from there to banning cars and making public transportation free. So this is a bold step. Whether it'll actually happen or not is another matter. This is at the thinking about it stage at the moment, and this is what we're planning on doing kind of stage, as opposed to it having been enacted. So, as I say, she's facing some opposition in trying to push this through. The mayor is. Whether it'll happen, it remains to be seen. But it's a bold move, and I'd love to see these kind of moves being rolled out in other cities as well. So, as I say, we'll see if it happens. Fingers crossed it does, because it really needs to happen in Madrid. The air quality there is appalling. Better news out of Austria, and that news out of Austria is the largest state in Austria now have come out and said that they are now generating 100% of their electricity from renewable sources, and that's pretty amazing. That's just one state in Austria. It happens to be, it's called Lower Austria. It happens to be the largest state in Austria. In Austria as a whole, in Austria itself, we see that 75% of the power in Austria comes from renewables, and 25% comes from fossil fuels. So the country isn't there yet, but at 75%, it's still far better than almost every other country on the planet. So, kudos to Austria. And speaking of Austria, I was there. I was in Austria this week. For the Global Utility Week, which is the European Global Utility Week. It was in Austria this week, and I came across several really interesting companies there. The most interesting exhibit I came across, though, wasn't a company. It was an organization called Flexible Power, and their website is here, and it's in the links on the page as well. I'll just pull their website up on screen and talk a little bit about them. So the organization Flexible Power, it's an open source alliance. So right there, I mean, that's interesting. It's open source, so that's really good. And it's an open source software alliance. And it contains software companies like CGI and Accenture. It also contains Alliander and Stedin, who are two of the largest utility companies in the Netherlands. TNO is there as well, network operator. It contains research organizations and other organizations there. So it's got a good standing in terms of the people who are behind it. They're credible organizations and large organizations. I said it's an open source organization. What do they do? Well, they've come up with a platform for energy. And it's a really interesting one. And I have a demo of it. I'm gonna put it on screen now in a second. The platform is one where they connect all the devices in an energy grid. And having connected those devices in the energy grid, all of those devices in the energy grid can talk to the energy grid. They can listen out for pricing information on the energy grid, and they can then modify their behavior depending on the amount of energy being pushed into the grid and the demand. So each device has got a software agent built into it. And this is open source software. It's all up in GitHub. And they can, as I say, listen for pricing. It's all real-time and dynamic. And the software is written in Java and OSGI, so it's really easy, and it's got a small software footprint. It's really easy to implement. So let me just run the video here for a second to show you what I'm talking about. And so you won't hear the sound. I'll explain the video as it plays so you can see what it is I'm talking about. So let me just share the video, and here's the video. Now, what we've got in this video, and it's not playing right just yet. So what we've got in the video is this guy Alex from the Alliander utility company, and Alex is about to demo this little island that we've got here. So the island is right here with photovoltaic panels, where I'm rolling the mouse at the moment, just behind his hand. It's got battery storage. So these batteries here, these are little 1.5 rechargeable batteries, AA batteries. It's got a brain over here, which manages the whole thing. It's got a wind turbine up here. And on the screen behind there, it's got the real-time price of energy. At the moment, it's 46 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, when I play the video, what will happen is Alex will explain a little bit, and then he'll put a piece of paper over the photovoltaic panels, and you'll see the consumption. The consumption is indicated by these red LED lights here. So as the paper covers, the paper is kind of simulating clouds. As it covers the photovoltaic panels, the amount of energy production goes down. You'll see the price up here on the screen increase because there's less energy on the system. And then the LED lights will reduce the amount of energy they consume because the price has gone up. Then later, Alex will turn on the wind turbine. The price will drop on screen here. The LEDs will start to increase their consumption, and the batteries will start to take in charge. And all these different aspects of the grid are acting independently based on the real-time pricing. So let me just play the video there and you'll see it. So the solar panels generate 1.5 watts each. The LEDs, each light in the LEDs consume 0.2 of a watt each. So as he covers the solar panels now, or as he's about to, the price at the moment is 47 cents, 46, 47. Now it shoots up to 60, 63, and the LEDs have reduced their consumption. This is all done with software agents. As he takes away the paper, the price drops again to 46, and the LEDs start consuming again. So this is really interesting stuff, because this is the kind of stuff I've been talking about demand response for a long, long time. And as I say, it's completely open source software. I'm not going to show the wind turbine coming on, but take my word for it, when the wind turbine comes on, then what happens is the price drops and all the LEDs light up and the batteries start sucking in power. This is the kind of demand response type energy situation that I've been talking about for a long, long time, since about 2006 when I started talking about this first. And this is the first time it's actually been demonstrated working anywhere. And this is more federated than centrally controlled, because you've got a virtual market created on that little brain box that was in the back there. And all the devices in the network operate completely independently. And each time they operate and they make a decision that's published back to the network, and the network then realigns based around what's happening on the network at any point in time. It's a phenomenal system. And because each device is capable of operating independently and runs on its own agent, it's not centrally managed. So it scales a lot better than a single centrally managed system. It's been run in several pilot projects, including one in an island off the coast of Denmark at the moment, where there's about 1,500 homes operating it. So this isn't pie in the sky. They've got several certifications at the moment, European certifications, and they've applied for NIST certification. So this standard, it's really interesting. As I say, it's open source, it's on GitHub, it's Apache 2 licensed. The video that I have there, I did it on my phone, and I took the video on my phone. I'm going to be publishing it on YouTube in the next few days, and when it's up there, I'll mention it on Twitter, and I'll mention it on Facebook, and it'll be on my YouTube channel, so you'll all be able to check it out. It's a really cool software, and one of the most interesting things I came across at the Utilities Week in Vienna. So, anywho, we'll move on from there. So, sticking with energy, I saw this news out of Tesla this week. We've been talking on the show for a long time about the gigafactory that they're creating in Nevada, and it was scheduled to start rolling out batteries next year. Well, in fact, they're ahead of schedule. And I think this is the first time Tesla have been ahead of schedule for anything, because they're famous for being late in delivery on their cars. But yeah, they're ahead of schedule. So the Gigafactory is scheduled to start rolling out its first batteries later this year, before the end of the year. So kudos to them for that. And Elon Musk is his usual bullish self, and has come out and said that in less than 20 years, owning a car will be equivalent to owning a horse. So what he's talking about there is that the model of car ownership is going to go away, and people will start using cars as a service. So where you just, pick up your phone and say, I want to go to work. It's 8 o'clock. I'm due there at 8:15. I need a car in front of my door in 2 minutes. Car shows up, you hop into the car, you're at work at 8:15 as you'd hoped, and that's it. It's a microservice. You pay your 10 cent or 10 euro or whatever the price is to get there, depending on how far away and how long it takes. But you're not paying insurance for that car. You're not paying a car loan on that car. You're not paying 30,000 euros to buy the car or whatever it is. So it's a lot cheaper in the long run than car ownership. You're not paying road tax or any of those kind of things. You're only using the car when you're using the car. So normal car ownership, the cars idle 97% of the time and only used 3% of the time. In this case, the cars will be utilized far more often, and consequently, they'll be far more efficient and there'll be far less of them bought. So the car companies, the GMs, the Fords, etc., the sales they will have will go through the floor. And they're exquisitely aware of this themselves. I mean, GM have talked about this themselves, and they know it's coming, and they're trying to get in there themselves so that they can be part of the conversation and be part of the movement towards driverless cars, because they know they have to be. They know they have to be. So they themselves, they've got a new CT6, their sedan, and they're equipping it with what they call Super Cruise. And Super Cruise is their version of the autopilot that Tesla rolled out earlier this year. Well, last month, in fact. So Super Cruise, not as developed, not as advanced yet as Tesla's Auto Cruise, so Auto Drive, Auto, whatever they're calling it, I've forgotten what they called it in Tesla, not as advanced. And they reckon it'll take them, another 2 years before GM rolls out a car as autonomous as the Teslas. So, but it's coming. It's coming because GM are doing it, BMW are doing it. All the manufacturers are looking into this. Toyota themselves, Toyota have invested $1 billion or they're about to invest $1 billion in artificial intelligence in the US for the same reasons. They see it's coming. They're setting up an AI and robotics facility in California and MIT. So they're splitting it across the two sides of the US. What they're doing is they're looking into autonomous vehicles and robotics, like a robot designed to help the elderly. It's a curious mixture, but they said that they were they came into this because the Toyota guy gave 3 examples from their personal life that motivated them to develop robotics and related technologies. He said when he was a child, seeing a boy on a bicycle killed by a car was one thing. Then telling his 83-year-old father later in life that he could no longer drive, and then sending his then 84-year-old father to a nursing home. These 3 things kind of came together and convinced them that autonomous vehicles were the way to go and robotics were required for helping with the elderly. So Toyota are investing $1 billion in rolling out those, or in developing to roll out those kinds of technologies. Sticking with transportation, Google's Maps, which on Android at the moment are calling out traffic warnings. They're bringing that to iOS now as well. So they'll call out things like, crashes ahead of time as you're going along on iOS, and warn you to take detours. So great news there for iOS people who are using Google Maps. Microsoft are opening up its Cortana for iPhone beta. Cortana, of course, is Microsoft's answer to Apple's Siri. So if you're on iOS and you're interested in trying out Cortana, you can drop your name into there and say, I'm interested in doing it. Right now, it's only open in the US and China, but you can let them know that you are interested in being involved. And when it comes to your country, then they will notify you and give you an opportunity, presumably, to try it out yourself. Facebook also have an artificial intelligence engine called Facebook M. It's a virtual assistant which is backed up by actual humans. So Facebook, realizing that AI isn't going to be the answer to everything and wanting to extend the usability of it, have thrown humans in behind their artificial agent. So when it's Facebook M comes across a query that it can't answer, it boots it back to the humans in the call center, who then go and do it for you. So it sounds pretty interesting. Again, it's on a limited rollout within, I think it's just within California at the moment. Presumably it'll be rolled out slowly to more parts of the US and eventually to the rest of the world. So they're testing it and testing it at the moment. It's going to be a difficult one to scale if they've got humans behind it. It's easier to throw machines at problems like this than it is to throw humans. So we'll see how that goes. It's going to be a tricky one, but you know what? Facebook have got a crap load of money to throw at this problem, and if anyone can do it, they can. Or Apple, who have even more money. Facebook have responded to an open letter criticizing its real names policy. So on Facebook, you have to use your actual name. And this is a problem for some people who, go by a handle. Or it's also a problem for people who want to remain anonymous for whatever reason. You might be in a country whose regime are not very nice. You might be in Syria or Egypt or places like that in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. Some of these countries, they're not very nice, and they don't kind of take well to dissent. Even China doesn't take that well to dissent, and people speaking badly about the government, and they tend to censor people. And if you don't want the government monitoring what it is you're saying on social networks, then you can't really do stuff on Facebook because Facebook requires you to use your real name. And this has been a problem for a while, and they've been criticized about it. There was an open letter about it, and they've answered the open letter, and they've made it slightly easier for people now. But it's still, they've come out and said, look, yeah, we're going to make it slightly easier for people who don't want to use their own name to verify who they are, but they're still going to have to say who they are. So they're coming some way towards addressing the problem, but they still have a bit to go because they still are requiring people to use their name. OpenWhisper are a company that have an app called Signal on iOS. And it's one of these it's one of these encrypted messaging and calling services, which is really good. It's on iOS, and now they've brought it to Android as well. They had a thing called Text Secure. They had a thing called Text Secure, which is encrypted texting, and Red Phone, which is encrypted telephone calls. On Android. They're replacing the two of those with their new app for Android called Signal, which does the same as both of those. It is secure text and secure calling. Now, unlike a lot of encryption solutions that are on the market or that are out there, the OpenWhisper Systems Signal app is cool because it's open source. The code is free and open source, so that should allow any issues in the code, and there are always issues in code and these things, but it should allow the code in this, if there are any issues in it, for the issues to be surfaced very quickly and patched very, very quickly. So anytime you come across encryption software, if it's not open source, then you need to be suspicious of it. If it's not using open source technologies, you need to be suspicious of it. If it can't be gleaned, if the code can't be checked, you need to be suspicious of it. So the fact that this one, the OpenWhisper Systems Signal app, is open means it gets a lot more credibility. So kudos to OpenWhisper for releasing Signal for Android. As I say, it's already on iOS, so now it's on both platforms. And the fact that it's on both platforms means that you can make the Red Phone type Signal calls encrypted between iOS and Android handsets. So it's far, far better now. And sticking with privacy, Chilling Effects. Chilling Effects is an organization based in the US which has been publishing takedown requests, DMCA takedown requests online. So anytime people people make a DMCA request, Chilling Effects publishes that takedown notification, and it gives people it tells people what's been taken offline. And this is always good. It's always good to shine a light on these kind of things, because the DMCA takedown effects are often done by governmental organizations. So it's good to keep an eye on what's been taken down and by whom. Chilling Effects takes its name, Chilling Effects, from the chilling effect that these notifications can have. They can scare people into not saying stuff. So if you are afraid that your stuff might be taken down, there's a good chance you won't say it. Hence the name Chilling Effect. However, the name Chilling Effect does not translate very well into other languages. And even in English, it's kind of confusing for people. So they've decided to rebrand as Lumen, as in lumen as in the measure of light, and they are shining light on oppression. So they've decided to rebrand, and they've called themselves Lumen, and they're joining forces with other organizations in other countries. So they're now not just going to highlight DMCA requests, but they're going to highlight requests to take stuff offline in other countries as well. They're joining forces with the Nexus Center for Internet and Society, who are based in Italy, with the Instituto de Tecnología and Sociedad in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and the Center for Communication Governments in Delhi, India. So kudos, they're branching out, not just covering the US now, but other countries as well, and they're doing it in partnership with other organizations. So great to see them getting up and out there. Here's an interesting one, and this speaks to a couple of stories, 3 stories, in fact, that I came across in the last couple of days, this week, in fact. So actually, let me start with the other 2 and come back to this one. So there's a smart wireless router called Eero, E-E-R-O, which hasn't launched yet. It's just gained FCC approval. It went through a Kickstarter, got funded, but they've said they're delaying their manufacturing until next year, just because they've come across a couple of challenges in their manufacturing process, and they say they'll have it out next year. What does Eero do? Well, what it does is it manages your Wi-Fi, and it guarantees you decent Wi-Fi, but it also allows you to do, to control your Wi-Fi from your smartphone, to make sure everyone gets it, and also to, keep an eye on what's going on your Wi-Fi. So that sounds pretty cool, but it's not shipping until next year. Then there's this one. This is a similar idea. This one is called Luma, L-U-M-A. It's a new router that's supposed to fill your house with strong Wi-Fi and provide you with more control over what happens on your network. So again, sounds a lot like Eero. They've got an iPhone app which allows you to make things very easy to control. You can set content levels, like this is a PG-13 example here, for example. And you can decide how long different people have access to internet in your house, and so on and so on. Again, though, launching next year. The single router will be $99 and a 3-pack will be $249. They're going to ship in 3-packs because they're going to set up mesh networks in your home, and the mesh network that they set up will cover your entire house with Wi-Fi, but will appear as a single network. So it's one way they're combating the blind spots that people have in their homes by having a single network appear using mesh networking, and all controlled through a smartphone app. So it looks pretty cool. And again, though, not launching until next year. And then we have this one, the one that I showed at the start. It's called Circle with the Disney. And this is a failed Kickstarter, but when it didn't get the Kickstarter funding, they joined forces with Disney. who obviously helped them with funding. And they've gotten the device, which does very similar, it has very similar functionality to the Eero and to the Luma, but where it differs is it doesn't replace your router. So it isn't trying to be a router. It's an add-on to your network, which does the same as the routers that I talked about a minute ago, just without being a router itself. It doesn't take the place of your router. It becomes like a proxy server, and it's controlled again via the smartphone. And with the smartphone, you set who has access to what on the Wi-Fi. And it also gives a curated selection of Disney content, apparently. But it's not just Disney content. You allow people access to, you can say, okay, in my case, I have two boys, Tomas and Enrique, and I can say, okay, Tomas's Wi-Fi access gets suspended at 11 o'clock at night, so he has to go to sleep, and starts up again at 7 o'clock in the morning. So between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m., he has no access to Wi-Fi. He has access, for example, to 1 hour of Facebook per day and 1 hour of YouTube per day, and that's it. Any more than that, you cut him off. So you can go down at that kind of granular level, and you can say that he can only see PG-13 content, nothing more than that, and so on. So for parents, this kind of thing is really, really cool, because you can say who has access to what, and you can stop people seeing things you don't think they should have access to. And you can say, you can kind of pause the internet. You can say, okay, it's time for dinner now. Hit pause, and suddenly the internet access goes away, and everyone shows up for dinner miraculously, instead of being stuck with their faces in devices. So that's pretty cool. The thing about the Circle one, and I can see Susan Cohan saying there that it's a required thing in her house. I'm thinking exactly the same thing, Susan. That it's a required thing in my house too. It's on sale now. That's the cool thing. The Eero that I talked about and the Luma that I talked about are not on sale yet. The Circle has gone on sale. It's on sale. It's on the Circle website. So if I click on the link here, you'll see it. It's on sale on the Circle website. I think if I remember correctly, it's $99. There's a video here. If you click on the video, it's a good video. I watched it earlier today. Buy Circle. There's the link for it. Buy Circle. And you'll see when you go to the Buy Circle, yeah, it's $99 for one. Estimated shipping time, 5 to 7 days. I haven't tried to buy one. I haven't clicked on the add to cart, so I don't know if they ship outside the US, but obviously they ship within the US, Susan. So, it's not expensive. It's cheaper than the other two. It's cheaper than the Eero, and it's cheaper than the Luma, because it's not trying to be a router. It's just trying to be this kind of proxy device within your network. So, it seems like a good deal to me, and, for managing kids and also for managing guests. So guests come to your house, you just click a button to give them access, and they get access for the short time they're there. It looks like a nice idea. It really does. I'm curious to see a couple of reviews about it on Amazon or somewhere like that to see how it gets on, but it really looks like something that I'd be interested in getting. Moving on from there, Raspberry Pi, the foundation, and the UK's Code Club have merged for a global push to get kids coding. And that's really cool. Raspberry Pi, we've talked about on the show before. They make a little microprocessor. It costs, around $35, around 25 English pounds. They're based out of Cambridge in the UK. Code Club, a volunteer-run club for kids, started in the UK. I know the founders. Great organization for getting kids coding. This is kind of like your marriage made in heaven kind of thing. So Code Club generates not just lessons for kids, but lesson plans for parents and teachers to teach kids how to do coding. And it's fun stuff. They use Scratch typically, to teach kids how to code. It's great to see the two of these organizations come together, because there's a natural fit between them, and now kids get not just the software, but also the hardware as well. So this is a great move from these two great organizations. We're flying through the programs today without Chris slowing me down, through the stories without Chris slowing me down. I'm gonna have to slag him about that. I'm heading to Barcelona. I'm heading to Barcelona on Monday, because SAP have their Tech Ed event in Barcelona. I didn't get to the one in Vegas, but I'll be at the one in Barcelona Monday to Thursday. Chris is going to be there as well, so I'm going to have to slag him off when I get there on Monday, and you know, take the piss a little, because we're getting through the stories in rapid, quick time without him slowing me down. Anyway, so the next story is about Parrot, but also about Canonical. So Canonical are the people who make Ubuntu, and actually, speaking of them, and speaking about Ubuntu, my organization, RedMonk, is running an Internet of Things conference in London at the start of December, the 3rd and 4th of December. It's called ThingMonk. Most of our events are branded with some kind of monk thing in the name. So we have Monktoberfest in May and in October. We have ThingMonk in December in London, and then we have Monkey Gras, kind of named after Mardi Gras, Monkey Gras in at the end of January in London as well. The ThingMonk one is, as I say, it's an IoT themed event in London, start of December. The reason I'm bringing it up is because the founder and head of Canonical, Mark Shuttleworth, is going to be one of the speakers. So that should be really, really interesting. He's an interesting guy. He set up Canonical. They're the people who run Ubuntu. So I'm going to be fascinated to hear him speak. Another speaker that'll be there is Jeremiah Stone, formerly of SAP, now head of data for IoT for GE. He'll be speaking as well. And I'll be there and I'll be speaking. I'll be speaking about the coming together of IoT and energy. And I'll be mentioning the flexible power folks that I talked about earlier in this show. So, and I'll be running that video. So back to the stories before I got off on that tangent there. So the Canonical have teamed up with DJI, the people who make the Parrot drones, to come up with a drone which runs Linux. So and they'll be running the Ubuntu distribution, obviously, of Linux. The device is called Manifold, and it has a small embedded computer that's optimized for building applications for drones. It only fits on top of the one type of drone, the Matrix 100 from DJI. So it's not going to be something that'll be on the cheap ones. It's a $3,000 drone. But you know, it because it's running Linux, because it's running Ubuntu, it's basically a developer platform. You know, you can develop for it. They're releasing APIs and all that kind of good stuff. So anything you want to do, you have a decent microprocessor, you have a decent operating system, you have a decent drone, not cheap, but it's there, and we'll see what people come up with for that. And you know, not just that, but we're seeing Google, and Google aren't alone in this, Amazon and lots of others are doing this as well. But the Google have announced their plans for a drone delivery service for 2017. They've been working with the FAA on this, and their David Voss, the project leader, has come out and made the announcement saying, yeah, we're going to start having a commercial business up and running in 2017. They don't say what it is they're going to be delivering by drone. It's not going to be search results anyway. So one wonders, are they going to get into commerce? Because the other two people who are pushing hard on this are Amazon and Alibaba, both of whom are, you know, commerce or e-commerce organizations. Walmart, as we announced last week, are looking into this as well. But Google, like I say, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to see what they're going to be delivering. As I say, it's not going to be search results. So I'm kind of scratching my head on that one. YouTube are announcing now that they're allowing people to watch any video with a VR, virtual reality headset. This is so far Android only, but they're going to launch it on iOS now as well. And it's cool timing, because during the week, I got one of these Google Cardboard headsets. So it's for looking at virtual reality videos. What you do is, it's an empty piece of cardboard with a couple of lenses there. But if you slip your smartphone into it, I'll do it here on the screen. Slip your smartphone in there, close it up, and then you've got your smartphone within there, and you look in and you can see things in 3D and virtual reality. It's really, really cool, and it's really, really cheap. It's made of cardboard with a couple of plastic lenses, as I said. Costs about, depending on who you source it from, costs about $25 to $35. So very cheap. It's a very cheap way of getting into virtual reality. And now Google are saying that you can get the Google Cardboard application. It's free, and that has interesting things like it has Google Street Maps available for certain areas, not everywhere, certain areas with 3D views and VR views of wherever it is you want to look at. Not everywhere, but they have places like I was looking at Jerusalem this morning, and Paris, around the Eiffel Tower, and places like that. Really, really interesting. They even have Mars with a VR 3D view. So very, very cool. So now, as I say, all videos will have that option as well very shortly on iOS, and already on Android if you're on Android. The next thing that, sticking with that topic, the New York Times have come out with a news application that uses Google Cardboard as well, or that can use Google Cardboard as well. So if you have a headset, you can get this application. It's called NYTV, New York Times Virtual Reality. I've downloaded it, I've tried it out, and it's really interesting. They have a number of stories in there. These are obviously not fast-breaking stories. They're stories that have been filmed with a 360-degree VR camera. So you need a special camera to do this. So this is more like editorial than it is fast-breaking news. One of the stories they have there is a story about refugees, where they talk to 3 different refugees, an 11-year-old from Eastern Ukraine, a 12-year-old Syrian girl, and a 9-year-old South Sudanese boy. And they talk to these kids about their experience as refugees. And, there's no blood, there's no gore, there's no violence, there's nothing like that in there. It's just they're talking to these kids, it's showing them in their day-to-day lives. In refugee camps or wherever. The Ukrainian kid is after returning home to his village after it was abandoned during the war there. So you're seeing the destruction in his village. The Syrian girl is in a camp in the Lebanon, and the 9-year-old is on an island in a lake away from his village, which has been attacked. So you're just hearing their stories and seeing the conditions they're in. And, the fact that you're seeing it and hearing them talk and seeing it in full, 3D and VR, it's far more immersive, and it's far more affecting. It really is. It really is. If you can get a chance to try one of these headsets, they're not expensive, as I said, and they are very good. I would take it. I would take a chance to do it. I think VR is going to be a step on the road to AR, to augmented reality. I think eventually, there would be places that VR will be better, but for most people, AR is what's really going to be important, with things like Microsoft's HoloLens coming in time. But anyway, for now, VR is here. It's cheap. It's easy to use. So I think it, and with applications like the New York Times VR, it's really effective. Really effective. Second to last, BlackBerry made a $700 Android phone. It's called the Priv. I'm kind of humming and hawing about this one. If you're into Android, the reviews this has gotten are pretty good. It's not just that it's an Android phone. It's an Android phone that's very like the Nexus phones, because it's got pretty much the same version of Android that is on the Nexus. It's not It's not customized like the Samsung Android phones are. They've said, and BlackBerry have come out and said that they will update it, you know, at the same time that Google does. So they'll keep the same update schedule, so you'll get the updates straight away. And one of the reasons for that is Android's got a reputation around security that it wants to hang on to. So it's gonna update as quickly as possible. It's got a nice rubberized back, which makes it grip very well. But it's also, if you look here, this is the phone. It's got a slide out physical keyboard. So that slides down and you've got an actual physical keyboard you can use there. And obviously slides back up again. Personally, I've gotten so used to the touchscreen keyboards now, I don't think I could go back to a physical keyboard on a phone. The idea of having to press a button seems weird to me. I get that people are used to it, and you know, but the slide out keyboard is a good idea, I guess, because you got the full size screen and you're not sacrificing screen space by having a keyboard there. So, you know, if you're into physical keyboards and you have like $700 to spare because it's an expensive phone, then apparently this is a good phone. So if you're into Android and like a physical keyboard and like BlackBerry, now you've got the best of all worlds. You just need $700 to get it. And that's it, I think. I think that's all the stories we have for today. That one kind of snuck up on me because I had an empty tab there. So yeah, that's all the stories for this week. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for sticking with me. Apologies for not having a co-host. I did try. I put a message out on Facebook 30 minutes, well, an hour and 30 minutes ago now, saying I needed a co-host, but it was way too short notice for anyone to jump on. Okay. We shall see you same time, same channel next week. And if anyone is going to Barcelona to SAP's Tech Ed, I'll be there. Come up and say hi, and I'll be speaking about energy and IoT at the Tech Talks Thursday afternoon, 2:15 Barcelona. So hope to see you there. If not, we'll see you back here next week, same time, same bat channel. Have a good one.